Hi, I'm Ava. Let me take you back to a moment that forever changed my life. 15 years ago, in a mid-sized American city, my life seemed like something out of a dream. I was married to Michael, a charming man, and we had been blessed with our beautiful daughter, Sophie. On the surface, everything appeared perfect. But beneath that idyllic exterior, a storm was brewing. One evening, Michael walked through the door with a look I'd never seen before, cold, distant, a shadow of the man I thought I knew. His usual warmth was gone. "Ah, we need to talk," he said, his voice distant as he avoided my gaze. Then, without preamble, he dropped the bomb. "I filed for divorce." I stood frozen. "Divorce? Michael, what are you talking about? Is this some kind of joke?" But it wasn't a joke. He told me it was his mother, Elizabeth, who had pushed him to this decision. Elizabeth, who had never hidden her disdain for me. She believed I outshined her own daughter, convinced Michael that I didn't belong in their family. As I struggled to make sense of this betrayal, the situation grew darker. Elizabeth hadn't just convinced Michael to leave me, she wanted to ruin me. She had orchestrated a plan so devious I could barely comprehend it. They accused me of stealing a large sum of money from the family business, framing me for a crime I didn't commit. I still remember sitting in the lawyer's office, my world collapsing. "Mrs. Ava," the lawyer began, his tone grave, "the evidence against you is significant. It will be difficult to prove your innocence." "I didn't do it. They're lying." I protested, but the legal system was impenetrable. Elizabeth's power and influence seeped into every corner of that courtroom. And Michael? He sat next to her, a mere puppet under her control. "My client is innocent," my lawyer argued with conviction. "These accusations are nothing but a product of personal grudges." But Elizabeth's lawyer was sly, and the fabricated evidence was damning. "Your Honor, it's clear that Ava is both a thief and an unfit mother," he declared. The judge's gavel came down with a finality that echoed through my heart. Custody of Sophie was awarded to Michael. I saw the smug satisfaction on Elizabeth's face as the verdict was read. After the court session, I rushed to Michael, pleading with him. "Please, Michael, don't do this. Sophie needs her mother." But he was unmoved, his voice cold. "It's for the best, Ava. You're not the person I thought you were." I returned home to a silence that screamed louder than any words. Sophie's laughter, which once filled the house, now echoed only in my memory. The emptiness was suffocating. In the weeks that followed, I tried to reach Sophie, but Michael and Elizabeth had built walls around her, shutting me out completely. Every denied visit, every unanswered call felt like a blade twisting in my chest. But I refused to let them break me. They had taken my family, tarnished my name, but they couldn't take my spirit. I made a vow. I would start over, rebuild my life, not just for myself, but for Sophie, so that one day she could know the truth. I packed my bags, leaving behind the remnants of my old life, and moved to a new city. It was time to turn the page, to write a new chapter. The future held more surprises than I could have imagined. The new city was a world of opportunity. I poured my heart and soul into a small startup, and slowly, as the business grew, so did my confidence. Along the way, I met Jack, a single father with a kind smile and a heart as big as his laugh. "Ava, you have this incredible strength about you," Jack said to me one evening as we strolled through a bustling street market. His words were warm, like a blanket I didn't know I needed. "It's inspiring." I smiled, feeling a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in years. "Thanks, Jack. Life has thrown a lot at me, but I'm still standing." As our relationship deepened, we decided to blend our families. Jack had 2 children, Lucas and Emma. They quickly became as dear to me as Sophie was. But the ache for Sophie never went away. One evening, while we were gathered around the dinner table, Lucas looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Mom, why doesn't Sophie ever visit? Don't you miss her?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "More than anything, Lucas," I whispered. "More than anything. But sometimes things are complicated." Jack squeezed my hand under the table, offering silent support. Despite the love and joy that filled our new family, there was always a part of me that ached for Sophie. I tried reaching out, letters, gifts, but they were always returned, unopened. Michael and Elizabeth had poisoned her mind, telling her that I had built my business on stolen money, painting me as someone to be ashamed of. Then, one day, a letter arrived from Sophie. My heart leaped with hope, thinking maybe she was ready to hear my side. But as I read her words, my world crumbled again. "Ava, I don't want anything to do with you. Dad and Grandma told me everything. You're a thief and a liar. The sting of her words was unbearable. I collapsed into tears, clutching the letter as if it could somehow erase the pain. Jack found me sobbing in our bedroom. Ava, what's wrong? He asked, his face full of concern. It's Sophie, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. She hates me, Jack. She believes their lies. Jack pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. We'll get through this, Ava. You're not alone anymore. Years passed, and while our family grew stronger and my business flourished into a successful company, the emptiness from Sophie's absence never faded. We moved into a larger home, our lives full of laughter and love. But every now and then, I catch myself staring out into the backyard where the kids played, wondering, what was Sophie like now? Was she happy? Did she ever think of me? One evening, Jack and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset after a long day. Ava, you've built something amazing here, he said, glancing at me with pride in his eyes. I just wish Sophie could see it. A tear slipped down my cheek as I nodded. Me too, Jack. Me too. Little did I know, the truth about my past was about to surface in ways I never expected. By now, my small startup had grown into a thriving enterprise, and I had become a well-known entrepreneur in the city. But no amount of success could fill the hole left by Sophie. I kept track of her life from a distance, watching her grow into a bright, independent young woman attending university. Though estranged, I swelled with pride at each of her accomplishments. One day, Sophie's world shifted. Hidden behind the stacks in her university library, she overheard a conversation that would change everything. She listened in shock as Michael and Elizabeth talked. I can't believe how easy it was to fool everyone, Elizabeth gloated. Especially Ava. Framing her for theft was the best move we ever made. Michael chuckled. Yeah, and the best part? Sophie still believes every word we told her about her mother. Sophie felt the ground slip from beneath her. Betrayal, shock, and anger flooded through her as she realized the full extent of their deception. Later that day, she confronted them. How could you lie to me all these years? She cried. You made me hate my own mother. Michael stammered, trying to explain, but Sophie was done listening. I don't want your excuses. I need to find the truth for myself, she declared, storming out of the house. With a heart full of confusion and anger, Sophie reached out to me. I was in my office when the call came through. Mom, it's Sophie. Can we meet? I need to talk to you, she said, her voice trembling. My heart skipped a beat. Of course, Sophie. Anytime, anywhere. We met the next day at a quiet cafe. The moment I saw her, all the years of pain and longing came rushing back. She looked so much like a little girl I remembered, but now so grown up. Sophie, I've missed you so much, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Mom, I overheard Grandma and Dad talking, Sophie began, tears brimming in her eyes. They lied to me about everything. I reached across the table and gently took her hand. I know, Sophie. I've waited every day for the chance to tell you the truth. We talked for hours, unraveling years of hurt, betrayal, and misunderstanding. As Sophie listened, her face softened, her remorse palpable. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I should have known better. Can you ever forgive me? Tears streamed down my face as I pulled her into an embrace. There's nothing to forgive, Sophie. You're my daughter. I love you, no matter what. Reconnecting with Sophie was like finding a piece of my soul that I thought I had lost forever. She began spending more time with me, Jack, and her half-siblings, fitting into our family like the missing piece of a puzzle. One evening, as we gathered for dinner, Sophie looked around the table and said, I never knew what a real family felt like until now. I'm so grateful to be here. Jack smiled warmly at her. You've always been part of this family, Sophie. We're just glad you're here with us now. As I watched my family laughing and talking, a deep sense of peace settled over me. All the years of struggle and pain had led to this moment of joy and reconciliation. But I knew our story wasn't over yet. The truth about Michael and Elizabeth's deceit had come to light, and it was time for justice to be served. The courtroom was tense with silence as Sophie took the stand. This was the moment she would confront the years of lies and manipulation by Michael and Elizabeth. Can you tell the court what you heard on the day in question? The prosecutor asked. Sophie's voice was steady, but the turmoil in her eyes was clear. I overheard my grandmother, Elizabeth, and my father, Michael, bragging about framing my mother, Ava, for a crime she didn't commit. They did it to keep me away from her. There were audible gasps in the courtroom. Michael and Elizabeth sat stiffly, their faces pale. And how did this revelation make you feel? The prosecutor continued. Betrayed, Sophie replied. Angry. I had been lied to my entire life. Michael's lawyer tried to discredit Sophie's testimony, but her sincerity and the overwhelming evidence was undeniable. When the judge's gavel finally came down, it was like a thunderclap. Michael and Elizabeth were found guilty. As they were led away, Michael's eyes met mine. There was no remorse, only a sullen acceptance of his fate. The courtroom buzzed as the judge pronounced their sentences. Elizabeth would serve time for conspiracy and perjury, and Michael for his role in the false accusations and deceit. Outside the courtroom, Sophie wrapped her arms around me. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. I hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of the past begin to lift. It's over now, Sophie. We can start healing. When we returned home, Jack and the kids had prepared a small celebration. A banner hung across the room that read justice and joy. Laughter and chatter filled the house as we gathered around the dinner table. Jack raised his glass, his eyes full of admiration. To Ava, a woman of incredible strength and love, he said, his voice brimming with emotion. To our family, united and strong. I looked around at the smiling faces of my children, Sophie, Lucas, and Emma, and felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long and fraught with heartache, but we had emerged stronger than ever. Later that evening, as the kids played in the backyard, Sophie and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. She turned to me, her voice soft. Mom, I can't change the past, but I promise to make up for it every day. I squeezed her hand gently. You've already made me so proud, Sophie. We have our whole future ahead of us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over our home, I realized that this moment was more than just a victory in court. It was a triumph of love, resilience, and unbreakable family bonds. And that's the end of my story, a journey through betrayal, to justice, and ultimately, to love and unity. As our story closes, I have a thought-provoking question for all of you. Sophie grew up believing lies about her mother and only discovered the truth as an adult. If you were in her shoes, realizing you've been misled about a parent your entire life, would you be able to forgive and rebuild the relationship? Or would the betrayal be too deep to overcome? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more engaging stories. Your support means the world.